The genesis of this significant development was remarkably understated, unfolding with such profound discretion that for an extended period, it remained largely imperceptible to the wider world. There was no grand palace announcement to herald its arrival, no meticulously crafted press release disseminated to the eager media, nor any formal photograph officially distributed for public consumption. Instead, what transpired was a far more nuanced progression. A delicate, almost imperceptible shift in established protocols, a quiet alteration in the accustomed daily routines, and a pivotal decision forged in the utmost privacy, behind the impenetrable barrier of closed doors. This profound, yet initially unseen, choice was destined to send deep and lasting reverberations throughout the venerable institution of the royal family, influencing its dynamics in ways that very few individuals could have accurately foreseen or predicted at the outset. Prince William, a figure consistently characterized by his inherently cautious approach to matters of state and his profound, unwavering respect for the time-honored traditions of the monarchy, embarked upon a private initiative. This particular undertaking, according to those intimately familiar with the inner workings of the royal household, was profoundly personal in its essence, heavily laden with emotional significance, and ultimately possessed an undeniable gravity that rendered it utterly impossible for anyone to disregard. When the confidential details of this momentous development eventually found their way to Prince Harry and Meghan, their immediate response was reportedly nothing short of profound shock, a reaction that underscored the unexpected nature and far-reaching implications of Prince William's actions. For a period spanning several years, the intricate relationship between the two royal brothers had been consistently depicted as deeply strained, inherently complicated, and notably characterized more by protracted periods of silence than by overt or dramatic confrontations. Following the significant decision by Prince Harry and Meghan to step back from their official royal duties and subsequently establish their new residence in the sun-drenched climes of California, a vast ocean quite literally served to separate them, both physically and symbolically, from the enduring embrace of the wider royal family. In the public sphere, carefully curated statements often spoke of enduring love, mutual understanding, and heartfelt wishes for each other's well-being. Yet, behind this facade, private sources intimately connected to the family have persistently alluded to a persistent undercurrent of unresolved tensions, deeply ingrained feelings of betrayal, and a pervasive sense of profound loss that neither of the brothers has yet been able to fully articulate or reconcile. It was against this complex and emotionally charged backdrop that Prince William's recent actions acquired a significantly greater gravitas and profound meaning than might have been immediately discernible on the superficial surface. According to those individuals possessing an intimate understanding of the unfolding situation, the genesis of this pivotal decision was firmly rooted in Prince William's increasingly intensified focus on his inevitable future role as the reigning monarch. In his esteemed capacity as Prince of Wales, he has, with growing regularity, assumed a greater proportion of the significant responsibilities that were once primarily shouldered by his father, King Charles. Concomitant with this gradual assumption of greater duty comes a noticeably sharper and more acute awareness of the enduring concept of legacy. Prince William has, throughout his life, been consistently portrayed as an individual who inherently thinks with a long-term perspective, meticulously evaluating his decisions not merely by their immediate impact in the present day, but critically by how they are likely to be perceived and judged many decades into the future. During the course of recent months, this particular strategic mindset appears to have undergone a notable intensification, growing in both clarity and resolve. Those closest to him, his trusted friends and confidants, observe that he has become considerably more introspective, dedicating greater thought to internal reflections. Concurrently, he has grown markedly more protective of his immediate family unit, his beloved wife and children, safeguarding them with an increased fervor. Furthermore, he has emerged as more steadfastly determined than ever before to meticulously define a clear and unambiguous path forward for himself and the institution, even when the navigation of that chosen path necessitates the quiet, yet firm, closure of certain previously open doors and avenues. The very essence of this particular move was imbued with profound symbolism, speaking volumes through its deliberate execution. Prince William made the conscious and resolute choice to undertake a comprehensive reorganization of pivotal aspects of his private existence and his most trusted inner circle. This involved a meticulous streamlining of individuals who were granted access to him, those who offered him counsel and strategic advice, and those who maintained connections to his most personal affairs. Crucially, this extensive recalibration was not primarily concerned with the allocation of public titles or the management of official patronages. Rather, its fundamental core was an unwavering focus on the paramount importance of trust. As part of this significant restructuring, long-serving aides, some of whom had been by his side for many years, found themselves reassigned to different roles. Furthermore, several family-linked channels of communication, once robust and frequently utilized, were reportedly scaled back or significantly reduced, and certain informal traditions that had previously served to connect the two brothers were deliberately permitted to gradually fade into obsolescence. From Prince William's perspective, this was unequivocally not an aggressive act of confrontation, but rather a calculated and necessary act of profound self-preservation. He held the firm conviction that he was undertaking precisely what was required to safeguard the well-being and security of his cherished wife, his beloved children, and, perhaps most significantly, the overarching stability of the venerable monarchy he will one day assume the leadership of. What rendered this entire situation exceptionally sensitive and fraught with emotional complexity was the rich, intertwined, and often painful emotional history shared between Prince William and Prince Harry. Having spent their formative years growing up under the relentless glare of immense public attention and scrutiny, the two brothers had, particularly after the tragic death of their revered mother, relied profoundly and extensively upon one another for support and solace. That deeply personal bond, meticulously forged in the crucible of shared grief and profound loss, was at one time widely considered to be utterly unbreakable, a foundational pillar of their lives. However, the inexorable march of adulthood, the profound commitments of marriage, and the emergence of vastly divergent visions for their respective lives gradually exerted a powerful force, pulling them in distinctly opposite directions. Prince Harry's candid openness regarding his personal struggles, combined with Meghan's pronounced willingness to openly challenge long-established royal norms and conventions, collectively contributed to the creation of a public narrative that frequently positioned Prince William in an increasingly uncomfortable and difficult predicament. He found himself perpetually attempting to balance his deep-seated loyalty to his younger brother with his unwavering sense of duty to the ancient and revered institution of the monarchy, and as the years progressed, that demanding and emotionally taxing balancing act inevitably began to exact a significant toll upon him. The moment Harry and Meghan reportedly became aware of William's profound private decision arrived not through the warmth of a heartfelt telephone conversation, nor the directness of a personal, confidential message, but through an intricate, circuitous path of indirect communication. That singular, poignant detail alone conveys an immense narrative, speaking volumes about the already fractured state of their sibling dynamic. Those privy to the inner workings of the royal sphere suggest that Harry experienced a profound sense of being blindsided, interpreting the strategic realignment not as a neutral administrative restructuring, but rather as a deliberate and unequivocal act of emotional distancing. For Meghan, who has, for an extended period, felt profoundly excluded and fundamentally misunderstood by the intricate royal system, this development served to reinforce her deeply held conviction that the palace operates behind the scenes in opaque, often inscrutable ways that can feel both chillingly cold and utterly unyielding. The deep consternation they reportedly felt was not solely centered on the practical implications of the decision itself, but more significantly, on what it profoundly symbolized. The stark reality of a brother consciously choosing to forge a future in which there appeared to be no immediate or discernible space for genuine reconciliation, at least for the foreseeable future. From William's meticulously considered vantage point, this pivotal choice was never conceived with punitive intent. Those intimately acquainted with his inner thoughts attest that he continues to harbor a deep and abiding affection for Harry. Nevertheless, he has demonstrably reached a critical juncture where the establishment of clear and unwavering emotional boundaries has become an absolute necessity. The relentless, pervasive glare of media scrutiny, the public airing of deeply personal grievances, and the unpredictable, often destabilizing impact of successive revelations have collectively rendered him profoundly wary. Indeed, every seemingly private conversation now carries the inherent and escalating risk of transmogrifying into public discourse, dissected and debated on a global stage. For a man diligently preparing for the monumental responsibilities of kingship, that pervasive risk feels increasingly untenable and unsustainable. By quietly and deliberately reshaping the contours of his personal and professional world, William harbored the fervent hope of regaining a vital sense of control and a much-needed measure of calm amidst the ceaseless tumult. Yet, silence possesses an extraordinary capacity to communicate with a power that often transcends spoken words. The conspicuous absence of direct, brotherly communication, the subtle yet perceptible shifts meticulously observed by vigilant royal watchers, and the undeniable, steadily growing emotional chasm have collectively fueled an intense wave of public and private speculation. Was this an ephemeral pause, a temporary cessation in their strained relationship, or did it signify a permanent, irreversible alteration of their bond? Was William intentionally leaving the proverbial door ever so slightly ajar, or was he, with a quiet but resolute determination, gently but firmly closing it forever? These profound, unsettling questions continue to linger, perpetually unanswered, thereby amplifying the pervasive sense of drama and unresolved tension surrounding the entire delicate situation. What remains unequivocally clear is that this strategic move has indelibly marked a profound turning point. It unequivocally signals the commencement of a distinct new phase in William's life, a period characterized by a resolute prioritization of clarity over the comforting haze of nostalgia, and an unwavering commitment to stability over the often tempestuous currents of sentiment. For Harry and Meghan, it serves as an undeniably stark and unsettling reminder that the venerable royal family, as an institution, possesses an inherent momentum, continuing its inexorable progression forward with or without their active involvement. The deep shock they reportedly experienced was not merely about the indignity of being left out of a crucial decision. It was about the profound and painful realization that the cherished brotherly bond they once implicitly relied upon, a connection forged in shared history and experience, may regrettably never return to its former, comforting state. As the world observes from the periphery, meticulously interpreting every subtle gesture and diligently reading between the carefully chosen lines of official pronouncements, the true, immense emotional weight of William's momentous decision remains a burden known only to those closest to his heart. But one fundamental truth stands absolutely certain. This quiet, deeply private, yet strategically significant move has irrevocably reshaped the intricate dynamic of one of the most closely watched and scrutinized families on the entire planet. And while its profound implications may not have immediately dominated global headlines with sensational force, its far-reaching impact is still very much in the process of unfolding, carrying with it a cascade of consequences that will undoubtedly be felt and reverberate for many years to come, shaping the narrative for a future generation. As the days gradually passed, each one bringing its own quiet revelations, the emotional fallout stemming from William's singular decision began to manifest and take discernible shape in increasingly quieter, yet more profoundly revealing ways. There were no public statements issued, no dramatic rebuttals offered to the swirling rumors, but instead, a series of subtle, almost imperceptible signs emerged, unequivocally indicating that something fundamentally significant had shifted at the very core of their familial connections. Invitations that, in previous times, might have been readily extended with expectation, simply never materialized. Messages that, in a bygone era, might have been answered with promptness and directness, were now met with polite, yet unmistakable delays or were meticulously routed through an array of impersonal intermediaries. To the casual observer, to those outside the rarefied atmosphere of the monarchy, these seemingly minor details might appear utterly insignificant. However, within the tightly knit and highly structured royal circles, such nuanced cues carry an enormous, almost incalculable meaning. They constitute the unspoken language of distance, a dialect spoken with chilling fluency by an ancient institution meticulously built upon centuries of rigorous restraint and protocol. For Harry, this slow dawning of realization proved to be deeply unsettling, an emotionally wrenching experience. Despite the myriad challenges and conflicts that had transpired over the years, there had always persisted an underlying assumption, perhaps even a resilient hope, that the unbreakable bonds of blood would ultimately transcend and outweigh any transient discord or protracted conflict. He had, on numerous occasions, articulated his heartfelt desire for genuine reconciliation, expressing a deep longing for his children to intimately know their British family, and speaking candidly about the profound pain of feeling perpetually cut off from his ancestral roots. Learning that William had taken such deliberate, calculated steps to redefine and fortify his inner world, to restructure his immediate sphere of influence and interaction, rendered those fragile hopes even more precarious. It powerfully suggested that the burgeoning gap between them was no longer merely an emotional chasm, a matter of personal feeling, but had evolved into something far more formidable and enduring. A structural barrier, meticulously reinforced by strategic decisions expressly designed to last and to withstand any future attempts at rapprochement. Meghan's response to the unfolding situation, as conveyed by those intimately acquainted with the couple, proved to be far more intricate and multi-layered than a simple reaction. Upon a first consideration, she experienced a distinct sense of vindication. From her unique vantage point, William's decisive action appeared to unequivocally affirm a long-held suspicion that the venerable royal system, in its foundational essence, consistently prioritizes rigid hierarchy and unyielding control above the more nuanced virtues of genuine empathy and transparent openness. Conversely, however, there was also an undeniable undercurrent of profound disappointment. Despite the myriad and significant challenges she had encountered and courageously navigated, Meghan had, at one point, earnestly envisioned a future where a foundation of mutual respect could still genuinely exist between them, even if their individual life paths had irrevocably diverged. The quiet, almost stark finality inherent in William's recent actions rendered that cherished vision considerably more arduous, indeed almost impossible, to steadfastly hold on to. Meanwhile, within the private confines of William's own household, the prevailing atmosphere was characterized by a profound sense of cautious resolve. Catherine, widely recognized for her remarkable ability to seamlessly balance genuine warmth with an impeccable sense of discretion, was reportedly a staunch supporter of her husband's weighty choice. As a devoted mother, her paramount concern has unfailingly revolved around the utmost well-being and protection of her beloved children. The preceding few years had regrettably exposed them to an unprecedented degree of public tension and scrutiny, far exceeding anything any parent would ever wish upon their offspring, and thus, safeguarding their precious sense of normalcy had ascended to become an absolutely paramount objective. For both William and Catherine, the deliberate act of cultivating and maintaining a stable, predictably serene environment meant rigorously minimizing any potential disruptions, even when those very disruptions emanated from within the innermost circle of their own family. This specific period additionally heralded a notably perceptible transformation in how William chose to approach and execute his public role. Astute observers within royal circles began to discern a newfound firmness in his overall demeanor, a subtle yet utterly unmistakable shift towards an assertive and confident authority. He appeared considerably more assured in his capacity to establish and maintain clear boundaries, markedly less inclined to offer extensive explanations for his decisions, and demonstrably more focused on pursuing significant, long-term strategic initiatives rather than merely reacting to immediate circumstances with transient gestures. It was almost as if the profoundly personal decision he had made had, in a sense, unlocked a clearer, more resolute sense of his overarching purpose. By decisively resolving these deep-seated internal conflicts, he effectively liberated a substantial reservoir of emotional energy, allowing him to concentrate with unwavering intensity on the future he so clearly envisions for the enduring institution of the monarchy. Yet, this newfound clarity and purposeful direction were undeniably acquired at a significant personal cost. The profound loss of an easy, unburdened brotherly connection weighed heavily upon him, even if William very rarely, if ever, acknowledged this burden publicly. Those who possess an intimate understanding of his character attest that he is by no means immune to feelings of regret or profound sadness, but he steadfastly processes these complex emotions in the utmost privacy, far removed from the intrusive gaze of cameras and the speculative narratives of commentators. He possesses a deep-seated understanding that effective leadership frequently necessitates profound sacrifices that often remain unseen and unappreciated by the wider world, and in his considered judgment, this particular instance represented a singular example of such a sacrifice. Choosing to commit to the immense responsibilities of the crown, even many years before the actual moment of wearing it, implicitly meant accepting the poignant reality that certain cherished personal relationships might, in fact, never fully heal or be entirely restored. Across the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean, Harry found himself grappling with a painfully familiar sensation of isolation. While life in sunny California undeniably offered him considerable personal freedom, abundant creative opportunities, and a truly supportive circle of devoted friends, moments such as this one starkly underscored precisely how profoundly he had drifted from the intricate tapestry of his past. The initial shock of William's decisive move was not solely about the sting of exclusion. It was, more profoundly, about confronting a stark new reality where the prospect of genuine reconciliation was no longer a guaranteed outcome. For someone who has consistently and openly championed the vital importance of mental health and the fundamental human need for meaningful connection, this sobering realization cut exceptionally deep into his very core. At the very same time, Harry and Meghan were intensely and acutely aware of the delicate complexities involved in how any potential reaction they might offer could be meticulously interpreted by the public and the media. To respond with excessive strength or overt emotion, they understood, might regrettably reinforce existing narratives of ongoing conflict and discord. Conversely, to remain entirely silent could easily be misconstrued as a tacit acceptance of the situation. This extraordinarily delicate and precarious balance has, in fact, become a defining and pervasive feature of their entire post-royal existence. Every single choice they now make feels inherently weighted with immense significance, and every moment of silence is subjected to intense and often merciless scrutiny. William's recent decision merely added yet another intricate layer to this already considerable complexity, compelling them to meticulously reassess precisely how, and indeed if, they would choose to engage with the royal family moving forward into the future. Behind the ancient and imposing palace walls, senior figures within the institution reportedly viewed William's strategic move as utterly inevitable. From their long-standing and institutional perspective, the monarchy thrives unequivocally on a bedrock of absolute clarity and unwavering continuity. Ambiguity, particularly when it involves high-profile members of the royal family, invariably poses a significant and unacceptable risk to the stability of the institution. By deliberately drawing firmer and more definitive lines, William was thus perceived as actively strengthening the monarchy, rather than inadvertently weakening its foundations. There was, of course, an implicit understanding that considerable personal pain was involved in this difficult decision, but it was coupled with a steadfast belief that the annals of history would ultimately judge the decision kindly, especially if it succeeded in preserving essential stability during a period characterized by profound and widespread change. Upon the initial emergence of hushed whispers surrounding the unfolding situation, the public response manifested itself in a predictably bifurcated manner. A significant segment of observers extended their heartfelt sympathy towards Harry, perceiving him as a younger brother, perhaps even a beloved kin, who had been unceremoniously left out in the emotional cold, facing isolation. Conversely, a substantial number of individuals voiced their profound admiration and commendation for William, applauding his unwavering commitment to prioritizing his sense of duty and his resolute efforts in safeguarding the enduring future of the monarchy. Digital platforms, particularly social media, became vibrant, almost frenetic, arenas of discussion, buzzing with an incessant stream of diverse theories, deeply emotional reactions, and fervent debates that touched upon complex themes of loyalty, personal responsibility, and the possibility of forgiveness. Nevertheless, amidst this tumultuous cacophony of public opinion and widespread conjecture, the principal figures themselves maintained a profound and deliberate silence, a quietude that inadvertently allowed an expansive void to be filled entirely by rampant speculation and unverified assumptions. The particular significance of this pivotal moment was profoundly amplified by its precise timing within a broader historical context. As the monarchy found itself meticulously navigating a complex and often delicate generational transition, simultaneously contending with the ebb and flow of public trust, and adapting to an ever-evolving landscape of societal expectations, each and every internal shift within the royal family assumed an exponentially amplified importance. William's carefully considered private move transcended the mere realm of intricate family dynamics. It served, rather, as a potent and unequivocal signal of his readiness. This readiness encompassed a profound willingness to lead with conviction, to make weighty and often difficult decisions with unwavering resolve, and crucially, to fully accept the far-reaching consequences that inevitably stemmed from those very decisions. Through this decisive action, he meticulously drew a definitive line, a demarcation that possesses the potential to profoundly shape and define the very essence of his future reign, long before it is officially inaugurated. For Harry and Meghan, the trajectory of their future endeavors continues to be enveloped in a pervasive sense of profound uncertainty. The initial, jarring shock they experienced has, over a measured period, gradually receded, yielding to a more reflective and profoundly sobering clarity regarding their situation. They are, with deliberate intent, actively constructing a life meticulously defined by their own deeply held personal values, striving for an existence that is unequivocally independent of the traditional and often rigid royal structures. However, significant moments such as this invariably serve as poignant and powerful reminders of the profound connections and established roles that have been irrevocably left behind. Consequently, the critical question of whether the passage of time will ultimately serve to soften William's currently firm stance or, conversely, act to further deepen the existing and palpable divide between the brothers remains an enigma, the answer to which resides solely within the unfolding tapestry of the future. As the intricate narrative of these events persistently continues to unfold before the public eye, one undeniable truth emerges with striking clarity. This was decidedly not a dramatic or tumultuous break, nor was it born from a place of overt anger or direct confrontation. Instead, it represented a quiet, yet profoundly deliberate, recalibration of existing dynamics, meticulously carried out with a distinct sense of measured intention and admirable restraint. It is precisely in these many subtle ways that such an action acquires an even greater, more potent power, for it is often the case that the most truly shocking and transformative moves are not the overtly loud pronouncements that vociferously demand immediate attention, but rather the profoundly silent and understated ones that possess the capacity to fundamentally alter everything, often without a single explicit word ever needing to be spoken aloud. With the inexorable passage of time, the profound weight and far-reaching implications of William's carefully considered decision gradually began to firmly settle into what subsequently became recognized as a new and enduring normal, a redefined state of affairs that fundamentally reshaped the expectations held by all parties involved. What had initially been perceived as startlingly shocking and disruptive slowly but inexorably transformed into a steady, unyielding, and ultimately undeniable reality. The conspicuous absence of any overt conflict or public confrontation rendered it exceedingly difficult for anyone to openly challenge the new status quo, and the deliberate lack of an explicit explanation or justification left precious little room for anything other than a quiet, if sometimes reluctant, acceptance within the immediate confines of the royal family itself. Established routines were subtly adjusted and subsequently re-established. Scheduled events continued to move forward with customary precision. In essence, the venerable institution performed precisely what it has historically done best. It adapted quietly yet remarkably efficiently to this entirely new and unprecedented set of circumstances. For William, this particular and transformative phase of his journey engendered a profound and deeply personal sense of internal alignment. The significant private move he had undertaken was no longer perceived as merely a protective measure designed to shield individuals or institutions. Instead, it organically evolved into a fundamental and unshakable foundation for the manner in which he henceforth approached the multifaceted responsibilities of leadership, the intimate dynamics of family relationships, and the demanding intricacies of public life. He appeared to gain a greater and more discernible comfort with the intricate notion that not every unfolding narrative necessarily requires an immediate or public response, and furthermore, that not every strained relationship possesses the inherent capacity to be salvaged through effort alone, regardless of its intensity. Within his carefully constructed world, the imperative of responsibility now unequivocally outweighed the desire for reconciliation, not because the bonds of affection or love had somehow entirely vanished, but rather because he held a steadfast and profound conviction that the greater collective good of the institution and its people demanded an uncompromising clarity of purpose and action. This deeply ingrained belief profoundly shaped his subsequent actions, meticulously defined his evolving priorities, and rigorously established the precise boundaries he steadfastly maintained. During this period of profound change and recalibration, Catherine's indispensable role ascended to an even more prominent and undeniably significant level within the royal family's public narrative. She consistently and gracefully continued to project an aura of genuine warmth and unwavering stability in her public appearances, thereby offering a reassuring and steadfast presence that stood in stark yet subtle contrast to the palpable undercurrents of family tension that permeated the private sphere. Individuals fortunate enough to be close to her frequently attest to her remarkable capacity to understand and empathize with both sides of the complex divide, acknowledging her genuine compassion for Harry while simultaneously standing with resolute firmness and unwavering loyalty beside her husband. Her primary and unwavering focus remained steadfastly centered on assiduously cultivating and fostering a profound sense of unity and emotional security within her own immediate household, meticulously shielding her beloved children from the intricate and often burdensome emotional complexities that are an inherent part of belonging to such an exceptionally famous and intensely scrutinized family. In performing these crucial actions, she effectively and powerfully contributed to solidifying the very essence of the life and future that William was so earnestly striving to protect and uphold. For Harry, the deeply personal and intricate emotional journey he embarked upon assumed a distinctly different and evolving shape. The initial, abrupt shock he experienced following these developments gradually, yet profoundly, evolved into a period of introspective reflection, and this reflection, in turn, gently transformed into a quieter, more subdued, yet ultimately profound form of acceptance. He has, throughout his life, invariably carried with him a deep and enduring connection to his personal past and his heritage, and significant moments such as this inevitably forced him to confront the often uncomfortable and undeniable permanence of change. The poignant realization that his elder brother, William, was resolutely moving forward, charting a course for his own life and responsibilities without Harry actively by his side, was undoubtedly a deeply painful and emotionally challenging truth to absorb. However, this very realization simultaneously clarified something of immense and lasting importance for him. His future trajectory would emphatically not be defined by a prolonged period of passive waiting or anticipation. Instead, it would be purposefully and deliberately shaped by the cherished family he had lovingly created and the fundamental values he had consciously chosen to embrace and live by. Meghan, with her ever-present and profound perceptiveness for the subtle emotional undercurrents that often went unacknowledged, consistently championed a steadfast focus on the path ahead. While she undoubtedly felt the sharp, undeniable sting of exclusion, a sensation both personal and poignant, she simultaneously possessed the remarkable clarity to recognize the profound opportunity that such a painful separation unexpectedly presented. With fewer intricate emotional ties and historical obligations constantly pulling at their resolve, she and Harry were granted the distinct freedom to fully and wholeheartedly invest their energies into forging an entirely independent trajectory for their lives. Their diverse projects, their passionate advocacy work, and the distinct public voices they cultivated became the authentic and uninhibited expressions of a life no longer precariously tethered to the often demanding expectations or the elusive approval of the royal institution. William's decisive, private move, painful and deeply impactful as it undeniably was for all involved, served a crucial purpose by helping to solidify that nascent separation, rendering it far less ambiguous and considerably more definitive in its implications. Yet, despite the clear lines that had been drawn, the intricate story of their familial bonds did not conclude with any straightforward sense of closure or a complete resolution. There persisted moments, fleeting and profoundly human in their essence, that subtly hinted at a lingering, undeniable connection. These might manifest as a shared glance, almost imperceptible to the casual observer, exchanged across a crowded public event, or perhaps a carefully chosen, nuanced phrase embedded within a formal speech, or even a respectful, knowing silence observed during significant, shared milestones. These gestures, delicate and understated as they were, eloquently suggested that while new boundaries had been consciously established and meticulously maintained, the deep wellspring of emotion that had long bound them together had by no means been entirely erased. The complex bond between these two brothers, forged in the carefree innocence of childhood and subsequently tested with immense pressure and scrutiny by the demanding realities of adulthood, remained stubbornly complicated rather than being completely and irrevocably severed. public fascination with the unfolding situation only intensified and grew more pervasive as the passage of time continued its relentless march. Commentators, both professional and amateur, meticulously analyzed every flicker of body language, painstakingly dissected each public statement, and ceaselessly searched for any discernible signs of a potential thaw in relations or, conversely, a further deepening of the frost. Each and every public appearance by either William or Harry was inevitably viewed through the inescapable and often unforgiving lens of their fractured relationship, regardless of whether they themselves chose to acknowledge this pervasive narrative. Yet, both men appeared increasingly resolute and determined to live their lives beyond the confines of that singular, dominant story. William, with a clear sense of purpose, concentrated his considerable efforts on shaping a modern monarchy, one firmly rooted in the fundamental principles of dedicated service and unwavering stability. Harry, in turn, focused his energies intently on the challenging but essential task of redefining his own life and identity entirely outside the traditional royal confines. What ultimately rendered William's private, decisive move so profoundly impactful was not its immediate, visible effect, but rather its far-reaching and deeply significant long-term implications. It established an unmistakable precedent for how he intends to navigate and handle future conflicts. With a quiet, yet unwavering decisiveness, always maintaining a clear eye toward the future rather than dwelling on the complexities of the past. This considered and deliberate approach, characterized by its measured resolve, may very well come to define the tenor and character of his eventual reign, signaling the arrival of a monarch who places a paramount value on structure and clear-cut duty over sentiment, and who prioritizes unambiguous clarity over any form of compromise. For some observers, this will undoubtedly be a reassuring and comforting indication of steadfast leadership. For others, however, it will inevitably feel distant, perhaps even emotionally detached. But regardless of one's perspective, this approach leaves very little, if any, doubt about precisely where he stands on matters of principle and responsibility. For Harry and Meghan, the initial shock of these developments has gradually, over time, become an indelible part of their evolving story, simply another significant chapter in a remarkable journey already marked by consistently bold choices and a series of often unexpected consequences. They have, through lived experience, come to understand with profound clarity that distance, while undeniably bringing a measure of pain and sorrow, can also paradoxically bestow a newfound sense of freedom and autonomy. They have also learned the complex truth that genuine closure does not always arrive neatly packaged with a complete understanding or easy answers. Sometimes, closure simply manifests itself as time passes, quietly and inexorably, and life, in its persistent way, simply moves onward. In that deeper sense, William's impactful decision, whether desired or not, compelled everyone involved to embark upon a path of significant personal growth. As the years continue to unfold and recede into history, this particular moment may well be remembered not as a dramatic and sudden rupture, but rather as a quiet, yet profoundly significant turning point. It was a moment when distinct paths diverged with clear intention rather than chaotic happenstance, when a future king made the conscious choice to define his world and his role within it with exacting precision, and when a younger brother, with a mixture of pain and resolve, accepted that his place within that established framework had irrevocably changed. History, in its grand narratives, often focuses its attention on sweeping public declarations and grand, theatrical gestures. But beneath the surface, behind the scenes, it is these deeply personal and often private decisions that truly shape the destinies of individuals and, by extension, the course of nations. In the final analysis, Prince William's private and consequential move accomplished far more than merely surprising or even shocking Harry and Meghan. It served to clarify a future that had, for an extended period, remained shrouded in uncertainty and ambiguity. It definitively closed some doors, while simultaneously, and perhaps unexpectedly, opening entirely new ones, drawing indelible lines that may one day be softened by the passage of time and the healing of wounds, but which will surely never be entirely forgotten. And as the compelling royal story continues its intricate unfolding, This quiet yet immensely powerful choice will undoubtedly remain a potent and enduring reminder that sometimes the most profound and transformative changes occur, not dramatically in front of flashing cameras and eager crowds, but rather in the silent, often unseen spaces where the weighty demands of personal duty and the deeply complex currents of human emotion inevitably collide.